and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Vanessa. I like to talk about books. I hope everyone is having a fantastic weekend. Let me know in the comments what you're doing. I'm just, I'm trying to stay out of the way of everything, just reading, trying to finish some books. I'm a little bit behind on my TBR, so I'm hoping to catch up this weekend. Today I'm going to be talking about my 5-star predictions on my 2021 TBR. Honestly, in reality, all of these books behind me are on my 2021 TBR. But I did read 80 books this year and I've still got some time left, so I'm hoping that I can get the majority of my unread books read next year. Says every book lover ever, and it's just never achieved. I think I'm going to set my reading goal at 100 books next year, and I think that's quite realistic if next year is anything like the mess that this year has been. But to be honest, this isn't much different to my normal life. I just don't tend to go outside. I've actually really looked into it hard for my 5-star predictions on my 2021 TBR. I have about 50 books that are coming out next year that I have my eye on, and it was so easy just to say that one, that one, that one, and that one. But I thought, actually, I'm going to have a look at the reviews. I'm going to have a look to see what people who have read the arcs have said about it and what it's been compared to with other books. Some of them I was going to have on and then thought, well, it's actually being compared to that book which I didn't like, so I may like it, but I can't say for definite whether I think it's going to be a 5-star read for me. And I've also took into consideration the author's other works as well and whether I've liked them or not. So I've come up with a list of 12. 6 of them are physical books that I currently own that are on my shelves that I know I'm going to start getting around to reading in the early half of next year. And 6 of them are ones that aren't yet out, apart from one I think was out in September this year. I just haven't bought it yet. So I'm going to start with the physical ones and then move on to the ones that are published next year or the one that I don't have yet. So the first book that I think I'm gonna read and absolutely love based on everyone else's recommendation of it and the reviews of it, and I've heard so many good things about it, is The Rage of Dragons by Evelyn Winters. Now I know if you've been here a while you're going to call me out on this because I did have this on one of my TBRs for one of the summer months, and I had just set myself an unrealistic goal that month, so I never got around to reading it. It's a very long, chunky book. I want to read this when I'm actually dedicated to sitting down and reading every single word on every page of this novel. This is an adult high fantasy novel by Evelyn Winter, who originally self-published this book, but after a couple of years it actually was picked up by a publisher, so congratulations Evelyn Winter. Even before it got picked up by a publisher, I had people telling me word of mouth that this book was great. The main character in this book is born into a world that is stuck in an endless, unwinnable war. They've been at war for 200 years, and if you are born into this society, you're sort of just expected to be raised, go to war and die. However, every couple of thousand women are born with the ability to call down dragons, and then every couple of hundred men are like able to transform themselves through like a magical power into being a stronger warrior. So some people in society are gifted, however the main character is definitely not gifted, and he's like, I am sick of this, I'm leaving. He has a plan to get himself injured and escape the war. However, his plan doesn't go too well and he ends up being driven by revenge. I think what I'm going to do is, if this video gets some interest, I'm going to update in the comments every time I've read one of these books that I've discussed and let you know whether it did actually meet my prediction or not. The next one is Bourne, which is a recent acquire for me. This is a young adult fantasy novel, but I think it's on the higher age range of young adult version on the new adult. Fantasy book that I've had recommended to me so much. Every time I put a call out for book recommendations, this crops up. So based on word of mouth and recommendation, I think I'm going to really enjoy this book. The main character is a girl who witnesses the murder of her mother, and she gets herself enrolled into a residential program because she wants to sort of like escape her life. And on the first night that she's there, she witnesses a magical attack, and this unlocks her own magical powers that she didn't know that she had, and a lot of secrets and memories surrounding her mother's death. She discovers a group of people called Bourne, who are all descendants of the Knights of King Arthur, which is a big plot element to this. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this one goes. Next up is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I got this for my birthday off my husband. Thank you. But I've just not got around to reading it yet. I've picked this as a 5-star prediction because I've enjoyed everything else by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I think her writing is really great. She writes great characters and it's very easy to read as well. And I've also heard a lot of good things about this book from the people who have reviewed it. This book follows the life of a Hollywood celebrity from like the 50s into the 80s and the secrets about her life, and also the 7 husbands that she's picked up along the way. I know this has bisexual representation in it, which is another reason why I've wanted to get around to reading it. It's a little bit of a different read for me. I don't tend to read like adult books like this, but I'm looking forward to giving it a read anyway. Next on the pile is the book that I'm probably looking forward to reading the most on my physical TBR, and that is The Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Turton. You've probably seen this in another one of my videos where I just absolutely like gushed over this continuous spine pattern, which was just the most bizarre thing that I'd ever seen. There is so much attention to detail in this novel, I just love it. I've picked this as a 5-star prediction because his debut novel, The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hugo. Nope, I'm getting confused with The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It's The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. His debut novel was one of the best books that I'd read. I absolutely loved his style and the way he wrote books and the way he wrote mystery. As soon as I finished that book, I knew I had to get his second book as soon as it came out. Unfortunately, I haven't got around to reading it yet, but I am planning on reading it in January. This is a book set on a ship in the 1600s. And a detective is being brought from the Dutch East Indies to Amsterdam where he faces a murder trial. There's a couple of other people on board, including his bodyguard and some noble passengers, and things start going wrong on the ship. The livestock are killed and there's strange symbols appearing on deck. There appears to be like dead people walking around, and the people on board start getting whispers in their head promising them things. So, and there's some talk that the devil is like on board. I really hope this is as good as his debut novel. It looks really promising from the reviews that I've read, but if that's the case, this is going to be one of my favourite authors of all time. So I've set myself quite high expectations for this one, unfortunately. Story of my life. Next I have a really newly acquired book. I got this in the post this week, and that is Gideon the Ninth. I've moved jobs recently and my colleagues very kindly bought me a Waterstones voucher, so I ordered this straight away. It's one that I've been putting off buying because it's actually £14 in the UK for a paperback. That is so expensive. It's more expensive than what I'd buy a hardback for. But it was a book that I really wanted, so I thought I'm going to use this as a special treat. The plot of this seems really hard to summarise, if I'm honest, but I know that the main character Gideon is a reanimated corpse, and there's like swords and lesbian necromancers, and that the characters in this are apparently like really badass. A lot of the booktubers that I watch and find that their reviews of books are very similar to how I feel about books has really enjoyed this one, which is why I'm looking forward to getting around to reading it. Generally, if they enjoy the experience of a book, I also enjoy it. So based on recommendations that I've got off Booktube, I'm expecting good things about this one. On the front it says, lesbian necromancers explore a haunted gothic place in space. To me, that just sounds like the best description of a book ever. Imagine writing a book and being an author and having that on the cover of your novel. Like, you've just made it. And last for the books on my physical TBR going into next year is another birthday one, but this one's off my dad. That is The Bear and the Nightingale, which is a book that I've wanted for the longest time, purely because it's set in a fantasy version of medieval Russia. Quite a lot of videos ago, I put a call out asking for books set in a Russian-esque world, because I was really enjoying that sort of setting in other books, and this one was definitely one that was on my radar. The atmosphere in this book seems really great. It's wintry, it's fairy tale-esque, set on the outskirts of a forest in northern Russia. This has over 100,000 ratings on Goodreads, and it's still maintained an average of over 4. For the wealth of reviews alone that this book is really good is why it's a 5-star prediction for me. I feel like it's something that I've been looking for in a book for a long time. The main character is a young girl who grows into a teenager, and she possesses second sight, and she can see spirits around her home that are protecting her. Her dad remarries to a woman who also has second sight, but she perceives these spirits as being demons, and the dad starts to like turn against his daughter. This is the first book in a trilogy, so I'm looking forward to see how the series element impacts the plot, because the plot seems quite like basic. Not like basic like could be summed up in one book, so I'm looking forward to seeing where the storyline ends up going. And it seems like a perfect book for winter as well. So the first book that I'm going to mention, I have to mention because it is the 2021 release that I'm looking forward to the most, is book 2 in the Crescent City series by Sarah J Maas. House of Earth and Blood was one of my favourite releases of this year, and the second book isn't coming out until November next year, unfortunately, because she has another release which has pushed the expectation date of this one back. But in the meantime, if you're looking for some content about this book to sort of tide you over, I did make a 20-minute long fan theory video. It'll be on my channel about 20 videos ago, and I spoke about all the things that I was expecting that I'd seen the internet talking about, some theories about characters, what the title might be, what the cover might look like. Magic. I actually really like that video, it's one of my favourites. I have a more in-depth review of the first book if you want to know more about this as well, but if you haven't read it, just to fill you in, this is an urban high fantasy, which is a new adult. The main character is in her early 20s and she's living in this world which is so unique, has such a unique magic system, has so many different fantasy creatures, and she's trying to solve the mystery of her best friend's murder. She works in a library underneath an art gallery and she seemingly has a normal life, but after the death of her best friend, her life starts to just spiral. She teams up with someone that she shouldn't like. It's like enemies to lovers tropey a bit, which is my fave. But there's so many characters and it's so well developed, it's so well written, and I think it's a great addition to the new adult category. So I am absolutely dying to get Booktube in my hands. If this gets pushed back because of coronavirus, if I could just go to sleep between now and next November, I honestly would, because I need this book so bad. Next is the Gilded Ones, and this comes out in February, although I am very confused because I thought this came out this year. I think what may have happened is a subscription box published it, and some people have received it that way, even though a couple of comments on Goodreads say that that happened in June, and I swear that happened in 2019. Has my perception of time just disappeared? The actual plot synopsis on Goodreads is really good for this book, so I'm just going to read it out from my phone. 16-year-old Dacre lives in fear and anticipation of the blood ceremony that will determine whether she will become a member of her village. Already different from everyone else because of her unnatural intuition, Dacre prays for red blood so that she can finally feel like she belongs. But on the day of the ceremony, her blood runs gold, the colour of impurity, and Dacre knows she will face a consequence worse than death. Then a mysterious woman comes to her with a choice: stay in the village and submit to her fate, or leave to fight for the Emperor in an army of girls just like her. They are called Alakai, near immortals with rare gifts, and they are the only ones who can stop the Empire's greatest threat. Knowing the dangers that lie ahead, yet yearning for acceptance, Dacre decides to leave the only life she's ever known. But as she journeys to the capital to train for the biggest battle of her life, she will uncover that the great walled city holds many surprises. Nothing and no one are quite what they seem to be, not even Dacre herself. And according to Goodreads, this is going to be a trilogy. Now, I've chose this as a 5-star rating based on a couple of things. It sounds like books that I've also read and enjoyed, like Children of Blood and Bourne. The description genuinely sounds really good and interesting. There's a lot of things in there that sound like would be things that I would really enjoy in a book. And also because the reviews are really good as well. Obviously this has already been out and reached some people in their hands, unfortunately not me, as part of the box subscription that's been out. And the reviews for it are really good. It's been reviewed nearly 900 times and still has a rating of 4.2. So I have very high hopes for enjoying this one as well. Next we have A Dark and Hollow Star. This is a debut novel that comes out in February. This is definitely a case of was drawn in by the cover and stayed for the plot. This is an urban high fantasy book set in the Toronto underworld, and it follows 4 queer characters who are racing to stop a serial killer whose crimes could uncover the hidden world of fate of humans. This sounds like a Sarah J Maas book that I've needed with actual queer characters. It annoys me that Sarah J Maas's books don't really have any LGBT representation in them. This is compared to The Cruel Prince, but to me when you're reading about it and it's like fae urban fantasy, to me it sounds a lot more like Crescent City. I know arcs are circulating of this. I know a few people that have read it and have really enjoyed it and rated it 5 stars. I asked for an arc and I didn't get one, which makes me really sad, but regardless I will be buying this on publication day. Next is Sweet and Bitter Magic, and this comes out in March. Honestly, this cover, what a time to be alive. This is a young adult fantasy which is also LGBT. This is compared with Sorcery of Thorns and Guilds of Paper and Fire, about a witch cursed to never love but meets a girl hiding her own dangerous magic, and the two strike a dangerous bargain to save their queendom. Tamsin is the most powerful witch of her generation, but after committing the worst magical sin, she's exiled by the ruling coven and cursed with the inability to love. The only way she can get those feelings back, or even for just a little while, is to steal love from others. Ren is a source, a rare kind of person who is made of magic despite being unable to use it herself. Sources are required to train with the coven as soon as they discover their abilities, but Ren, the only caretaker to her ailing father, has spent her life hiding in secret. When a magical plague ravages their queendom, Ren's father falls victim. To save him, Ren proposes a bargain. If Tamsin will help her catch the dark witch responsible for creating the plague, then Ren will give Tamsin her love for her father. Of course, love bargains are tricky things, and these two have a long, perilous journey ahead of them. That is, if they don't kill each other first. I mean, what more do I have to say? It just sounds super, super, super good. Okay, so a considerable amount of time just passed. It's been 2 hours since the last clip that you just saw because someone came around and dropped some Christmas presents off, which was really unexpected. And it was a family member I've not seen since getting married, so it was nice to actually speak to them. But I still want to finish this video because we're actually so close to the finishing line, so apologies for the lighting change. This is an adult fantasy novel which takes its world inspiration from China, and it is described as Mulan-esque, and Mulan is my favourite film of all time, the cartoon version, not the remake. So anything that compares itself to that typical storyline is something that I'm looking out for and enjoy. In this book, the main character is orphaned and she takes her dead brother's identity to gain access to a monastery to learn and train. Her brother is seen as someone that is highly capable and is well respected. So by using his identity, that's how she's able to get into this male-only place. I can definitely see why it's described as Mulan-esque, and I'm looking forward to reading it. I believe this is someone's debut novel, so congratulations to them on getting published. I can't wait to read it. And the final book to talk about in this video is The Bourne Daughter. This was published this year in September, but I haven't bought it yet. This is an epic fantasy novel that has a really complex magical system and is told in multiple perspectives. Although Lynn appears to be the main character and she's the former heir to an emperor who will reclaim her magic and fight for her place on the throne, Lynn is the emperor's daughter and spends her days trapped in a palace of locked doors and dark secrets. When her father refuses to recognize her as heir to the throne, she vows to prove her worth by mastering the forbidden art of bone shard magic. Yet such power carries a great cost, and when the revolution reaches the gates of the palace, Lynn must decide how far she's willing to go to claim her birthright and save her people. Personally, I just think the plot sounds really fun. It's something that I want to read. It includes the sort of content that just seems like a great book for me, for my enjoyment. So I'm excited to add that one to my collection and to my 2021 TBR as well. So that's it for talking about my 5-star predictions today. Although there's a lot of great books that are on my radar for 2021, these are the ones that I'm probably expecting the most from. But I think it's going to be a really fantastic reading year. There's a lot of great releases coming out in 2021, and I've never been more excited for books coming out in a singular year. It's going to be a great year for publishing, for LGBT, for new adults, for young adults, and there's so much more variety now than what there used to be 10 years ago, and it's great to see that publishing is evolving to feature so many more people in their own voices. Thank you for joining me for this video. I look forward to chatting with you in the comments, and I'll see you in my next video. I hope everyone is safe and take care in the run up to Christmas. Bye guys.